Hi, I am Steve Wood, and welcome to Luke 21. Today we're going to be talking about apocalyptic darkness, and we're going to be looking at 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. Starting in verse 2, St. Paul writes, "For you yourselves know well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. But you are not in darkness, brethren, for that day to surprise you like a thief. For you are all sons of the light and sons of the day. We are not of the night or of darkness. For God has not destined us for wrath, but to obtain salvation through our Lord Jesus Christ." In this passage, St. Paul is describing the day of the Lord, the second coming of Christ, as a time of great darkness for those who are outside of the Christian faith. It will come as a shock, as a surprise. But he's also encouraging these new believers in Thessalonica, in the area of now what we call northern Greece. These were new converts, and St. Paul had instructed them. And in a fairly short time, St. Paul had to leave town because of persecution against himself and these new believers. So 1 Thessalonians 5 is writing to believers undergoing persecution and tribulation, but it's an encouragement. He's saying, you are not of the darkness. You are of the light. You're sons of the day. For that day will not take you by surprise because you're not asleep. You're not in darkness. It's interesting. St. John, in a very visual way, in Revelation chapter 9, describes his vision of seeing the bottomless pit, kind of a lid of it, opened, and these demonic creatures come out, and it's like a big furnace of black smoke that darkens the sun and the sky. And again, it's an end times darkening that goes on in the world. Now, St. Paul wrote that, as well as St. John wrote his in Revelation 9, so that believers aren't caught up in that darkness. So just remember, if you're a Christian believing in Christ, you're not in the darkness. You're a son of light. You're sons of the day. God has not destined us for wrath, but for salvation in Jesus Christ. Remember that. Now, I'm going to ask a big what-if question. And when we study biblical prophecy, we also want practical application for our lives. We're not just looking for some intellectual exercise, acquiring some knowledge of biblical prophecy, but we want those truths to hit our lives. So here's my what-if question. What if the enemy of God's people, Satan himself, came up with a strategy to put the sons of light into this apocalyptic darkness that St. Paul describes and the book of Revelation describes? In other words, Satan knows that if he could get the sons of light in darkness somehow, he's basically got them on his side, and they're not ready for the second coming of Christ. Well, it is my belief that that is actually occurring right here, right now in our world, and especially through internet pornography. And here's the strategy, as warned about by Jesus, that Satan is using against the sons of God. It starts in Matthew chapter 6, verse 22 and 23. Very important verses. This is a Sermon on the Mount. Jesus said, the eye is the lamp of the body. In other words, through the eye comes the light. To be a son of light, to be able to withstand apocalyptic darkness. But Jesus goes on, if your eye is sound, your whole body will be full of light. You'll be okay. Verse 23, and this is the clincher. But if your eye is not sound, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? And this is it. The internet has been able to flood the world with pornography unlike anything else in ages past. I talked to a man who actually suffers from 3 generations of pornography addiction in his family, but his grandfather started with pornography postcards and then moved to his father magazines and then himself to the internet. But the internet is just flooding the mind, and if darkness comes through the eye and light comes through the eye, how in the world could Satan try to thwart God's plans and trip up the very people God has designed for salvation? Well, it's through the eye. And through the eye comes the temptation to sin, and obviously men are very vulnerable like it. Now, I'm not here to shame or condemn anyone. I'll just say point blank, I don't want to touch or get near internet pornography. I regard it as a coiled snake, and that's not because I'm some type of spiritual giant. I regard it as something that I simply can't handle, so I stay away from it. And so what I want to share with you is that I realize there are men and women watching this podcast who are sons of light, daughters of light, sons of the day, daughters of the day, who started watching internet pornography, and for some reason, you can't seem to free yourself from it. And the reason is this, and the pornographers know this, they're very aware of this. When you view something as potent as pornography, and you get your brain flooded with it, your brain activates neurochemicals, brain chemicals that actually chemically imprint that image in your brain. I'll never forget the day of a retired pilot came and saw me. He was in his 70s, and he said, "Steve, I can close my eyes today and see pornography that I viewed a half century ago." Why in the world is that? Because it was chemically imprinted. It was not like you go to the market, forgot your grocery list, and you can't quite remember everything on the list. That's just a short-term memory. This is a chemical imprint. And Satan has developed a way to put his jaws into God's people. It's kind of like a pit bull puts his jaws into people, and it's almost impossible, at least it seems impossible, to free yourself. And there's a reason I call this apocalyptic darkness. If darkness comes through the eye, and if darkness fills the body, because the eye is the lamp of the body, it's either light or darkness, there's this profound darkness that comes inside. This is a way to, in time and in eternity, trip up Christians. And there's warnings about this. There's a couple of passages in Revelation you should be aware of. In Revelation chapter 14, there are 3 messages proclaimed in the loudest possible way from heaven, or actually mid-heaven. That's where basically we would call satellites today, satellite orbit. But in any case, there are 3 end-time messages, including don't take the 666 mark of the beast. So this is coming up on apocalyptic times. And in the second of those 3 messages is Revelation 14 and verse 8. Where St. John says, "Another angel, a second, followed, saying, 'Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great.'" This is the satanic empire that has existed throughout human history, that manifests itself in full bloom at the end of time. Fallen is Babylon the Great. What did she do? She made all nations drink the wine of her impure passion. That word impure in the English is from the Greek word porneia. And that's the Greek word we get pornography from. Now, John wasn't talking about internet pornography because porneia refers to all types of sexual sin. What's pornography? It's simply broadcasting all types of sexual sin. But it says that she made all nations drink the wine. And if there's going to be a worldwide apostasy at the end of time, this is saying how it's going to be done. There's a second reference to porneia in Revelation in 17 and verse 2, the great harlot, Babylon the Great, the wine of whose fornication, or porneia in Greek, the dwellers on earth have become drunk. To become drunk is to come under the influence. And this is how apocalyptic darkness that's released from the pit, that's enveloped the world, Jesus warns about, Paul warns about, the book of Revelation, the last book of the Bible, warns about. So, how do you get free of this? Now, there's a lot of options out there today, including Christian options. Some take cold showers, follow this program, subscribe to this, a whole list of pious acts, or basically, I would summarize all these as often spiritual self-help groups. I'm going to share with you the only thing I'm aware of in the world that can help someone with chemically imprinted images, darkness, apocalyptic darkness, and get it out of your life and get the help to get back together. And to do so, I want to go back to the Old Testament, to David. David was about to fight Goliath, okay? So we have David and Goliath. David is like a living preview, almost like an icon, but a living preview of Jesus Christ. The very first chapter of the New Testament has David mentioned 6 times in Matthew chapter 1. So we're supposed to put the connection. When we see David doing something, we should see Jesus doing something. Well, David was about to fight Goliath. Goliath stands for Satan, the strong man, the enemy of the people of God, terrifying them. So if David can beat Goliath, what does that say about Jesus? That he can break the jaws of Satan in our lives. So any case, David just shows up. He is keeping his father's sheep. And they said, look, you're just a young guy. You can't go out and fight that guy. That's a man of war. But David says, your servant has killed lions and bears. When a lion or a bear would take a lamb from the flock that I was watching and go off with it, I would seize the lion or the bear, take my rod, and this isn't little King David or Jesus bobbleheads. This is a man who took a club, went up to a bear and rescued the lamb right out of the jaws of a lion or a bear, and if he resisted, I clubbed him to death. And then David says, the God who delivered me from lions and bears is going to deliver me from Goliath. That is a picture of Jesus Christ in your world. And I would dare say, if you're struggling with internet pornography, apocalyptic darkness, you've tried this, and if they work, fine. But if they don't, read 1 Samuel chapter 12. And everything you see about David is a picture to imprint your mind of how Jesus and his power can deliver you from that grip in your own life. So, the bottom line is don't focus on this or that program. Focus on Jesus, the Son of David. Say, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Jesus, Son of David, save me. And he will. You're a son or daughter of the light and of the day. I'm Steve Wood, your host, and thanks for joining me on Luke 21, and join me on Luke21.com, our new website to accompany this video.